that machine will never be turned on establishment Democrats. The moment that that machine turns on establishment Democrats in the direction of whichever progressive candidate is winning, is a stop shitting on black women. Oh my God, I'm gonna die. I'm a black female Gen Xer and I've been insulted all night. I'm literally a black woman who's Gen X and I've been getting shit on all night. Stop shitting on black women. Demi Charm, you are a Gen X black woman. If given the opportunity, would you not vote for Zoran Mamdani? Are you going to sit here and defend Andrew Cuomo? No, of course not. My point is not for someone like yourself. You're in here. So obviously you're not who I'm fucking talking about. Jesus Christ. I did? Okay, there you go. Well, not Andrew Cuomo, I hope. Holy shit. No, you voted for Zoran if you're in New York, right? My point is Putin only got 87% of the vote, by the way. That's what I'm saying. Bro, that's what I'm fucking saying. Black women as a voting bloc is a more reliable voting bloc that does not exist in other democracies for the Democratic Party. Assad margins is what I mean, like is a higher margin than fucking Vladimir Putin, dude. Anyway, New York City mayoral primary election results are coming in. Holy moly. There we have it. All right, stop the vote. Stop the vote. Zoran wins. I'm a black 33-year-old woman, and I used to feel like Bernie wasn't speaking to me. I thought that by not mentioning racial issues directly frequently, that he was uncomfortable with the conversation. I couldn't make the connection on my own between more leftist policies and outcomes that benefit black people like me. I'm so glad I found the space. Yes, I try to make up for that. I try to make up for that as to the best of my ability. One of the things that I think Bernie Sanders did really well was to speak on universality of policies and then talk about how this actually would serve black and brown communities even better than others. Watch the
right
live
here,
coverage.
you know, just now it's just after 9 o'clock. Don't be surprised if those are significantly skewed in favor of Zoran, because we do.
What do we have like a fucking mainstream media? I want to see local news streams.
Ballots that were banked during the early voting period.
First of all, good evening to both of you. We are here at the Carpenters Union headquarters here.
The feeling was that Cuomo voters were much more likely to go to the polls on primary day.
Why are all the local news stationed at the fucking Cuomo Carpenters Union Hall?
On those unions for phone banking and get out the vote efforts. Tonight, they have been closely monitoring turnout in strongholds, including the Bronx.
How fitting that a heated primary culminates on a sweltering day. Voters in Co-op City armed with water and determined to have their voice.
Aren't white women, white people similarly comparable voting bloc? Fuck no. Are you kidding me? White women always reliably vote for the Republicans. Okay? At least consistently, but by 52% or 54%. There is no 90% constituency for any demographic. This doesn't even exist for black men. It's not for black people in general. It's just black women as a voting bloc vote by higher margins for the Democratic Party than literally any like there's no comparison in modern democracy.
Continue to go on. He does not have the Working Families Party line yet, but would you like to see the WFP
on
consider or give it to him to go on into the general election?
Zoran Mamdani and his entire campaign team ran a masterclass type campaign this election season. I truly believe that they will win this election. I don't even want to talk about any other ballot line come in November. I do believe I will be casting a ballot or casting a vote for Zoran Mamdani on the Democratic ballot line come November.
Great. Thank you so much, Councilman. So, Errol, again, we're talking to Chiose, Democratic City Councilman from Bed-Stuy, saying that he was able to possibly turn a couple of voters in favor of Zoran Mamdani against Andrew Cuomo.
Let's go.
Back to you.
All right. Thanks very much, Bernadette. We'll get back to you
Speak
a little bit later.
Chinese
right now,
him,
we're going to talk to our Bobby Cook.
Speak a little Chinese to him, Chi.
what we are seeing?
I mean, Errol, this is exactly what we talked about. We talked about this first tranche of numbers that we were going to get. It was going to be all the early vote and the mail-in votes that have been processed as of today, and we knew that those numbers were going to skew towards Zohran Mamdani. I mean, you heard our Bob Hart say earlier that this could be the high watermark for Zohran Mamdani, and sure enough, he's up by 7 points once those votes are processed. Now we're going to see the day of votes, the ballots that were voted today. We're going to see those begin to roll in as well. But the initial numbers came in very strong for Zohran Mamdani.
Also
but that will probably change as the night goes on, as we've discussed.
Why are you testing me?
The day of votes tend to favor
Hasanabi head, and I've literally had him on the stream.
But right now, Zohran Mamdani with 43%.
He's a quarter Chinese.
Cuomo's 34% and 13% for Brad Lander in third place. So I think we're going to get more data pretty quickly.
I'm white Chinese. He's black Chinese.
We've established this already. Just 4%, low single digits. I think over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes, we're going to see the numbers really begin to climb, and then we'll get a better sense for where we might land at the end of the night.
Well, yeah, can we see some of the other candidates? Because this is, you know, almost like a sort of a capsule. This is the early
Brad
vote,
Lander
right?
is picking up some steam on the first.
How did some of the other candidates do in that early voting period?
Well, you know, I mean, clearly Brad Lander did himself some favors with everything that's happened in the past week, right? He got arrested at immigration court, became a national story. He had a pretty strong debate performance. He, you know, got the not the endorsement per se, but he got a lot of support from this New York Times opinion panel, and he's at 13%, which is a little bit higher than he had been doing in some of those recent polls. So those are clearly the top three. There's some space between Brad Lander and Adrian Adams in fourth place.
By the way,
Scott
a lot of pickups here for Brad is good for Zohran.
Everybody else is down at about
Jessica
1%
Ramos.
or below.
Get the fuck out of here.
Zohran Marty, Whitney Tilson, Jessica Ramos, who effectively dropped her campaign, and Michael Blake with only about 1,400 votes total, looking at the raw vote total. So we talked about this being a two-man race, and that is really what it looks like it's going to come down to.
Any policy reasons you prefer Mamdani to Lander, or is he more Riz?
Third place. He's going to accumulate some votes, and assuming this then goes to a ranked choice tabulation a week from now,
that definitely
it's going to make
across
a big
the finish line for me.
Who those Brad Lander
but
voters
beyond that,
ranked
I mean, he has a lot of progressive policies. Like his platform is more progressive than Lander's, but Lander's is pretty good too.
Will then go to Mamdani once the tabulation is
open
run.
Socialist.
So, you know, a lot of moving pieces here with ranked choice voting. I think the better that Brad Lander does, the better it becomes for Zohran Mamdani tonight.
Okay, very interesting. I have Courtney Gross here with me in studio, and in some ways, not a surprise, right, that Mamdani would do well, but it really sort of sets a marker, right? If he's 10 points ahead now, 9 to 10 points ahead, if he can maintain that throughout the rest of the count.
Early vote by mail by 8, only 3 in Manhattan and 24 in Brooklyn.
Like was saying in polls that his voters were much more likely
Manhattan
to vote
is not
early.
good though. What
We've
the
seen
fuck?
some really
Only
interesting
3
analysis from WNYC and Gothamist, who's really broken down where this early vote was coming from. A lot
higher
of it coming from Brownstone, Brooklyn, which is obviously kind of Mamdani territory, including some analysis that showed of the early vote that came in, which was almost 400,000.
This hasn't refreshed
almost double the amount that we saw in 2021. That a quarter of those early votes, which is what we're looking at now, were
Why do you think Manhattan would be higher?
Who hadn't voted within the last decade, potentially new people who had just moved to New York City, or these young voters that we clearly saw came out who are interested in the Mamdani candidacy and are out there supporting him. It shows he's got some enthusiasm, he's got some grassroots support. I mean, we've heard the lines on the campaign trail for so long that they've knocked on 1 million doors, that they have 40,000 volunteers, and I think that this is what we're showing in these numbers. Will Cuomo be able to catch up?
Y'all are crazy, bro. Manhattan is an incredibly densely populated area. There are fucking poor people that live in Manhattan as well. Why do you think everyone that lives in Manhattan is rich? Early vote thoughts good but not great results for Zohran. Mark Levine in the driver's seat for comptroller. Jumaane Williams blowing out the public advocate's race. Not surprising.
And then he changed his whole schedule to vote on actual primary day to make sure and encourage his voters to get out there, even though it's obviously
young people do vote early in this race at least.
The
Zohran campaign did do a push for early voting.
Well, we've got a race to call.
They did a push for early voting. They didn't do a push for a vote by mail, obviously.
New York 1 is projecting Jumaane Williams as the winner of the Democratic primary election for public advocate. In some ways, Courtney, this wasn't all that much of a surprise. But it looks like it was an overwhelming victory. And in this kind of a case, there's no ranked choice tabulation if you're over 50%.
Yeah, so he is obviously in the clear here. Jennifer Rajkumar was trying to challenge him, clearly a very close ally of Eric Adams. You know, we've detailed and documented over the many months leading up to this primary how often Jennifer Rajkumar was with Eric Adams at press conferences. Our other colleagues in the media have done the same. I wonder if some people might see this race in particular as some sort of litmus test on the Adams administration because Jennifer Rajkumar is clearly so close to the mayor. This was a race that many people didn't pay that much attention to. People thought that Jumaane Williams was clearly in a strong position and wasn't necessarily at risk of losing his seat.
Right. And so even with only what the Board of Elections says is about 14%, a little under 14% of the vote of the scanners having been fed in, that lead is so commanding when you
Zoran getting killed on the Upper East Side, not doing so hot on the Upper West Side either, but there's a much larger Brad Lander vote there that may end up being friendly to him. A clear weakness relative to the Manhattan juggernaut that was Catherine Garcia. I suspect this is where the Brad Lander, this is where Brad Lander comes to help, because there's definitely, I mean, these are wealthier neighborhoods, but then also it's both wealthier neighborhoods, but it's also depending on, like, Upper East Side is Upper East Side also has it's not just the rich people on the Upper East Side. It's also there's also a the constituency of black voters as well, right? Isn't that Upper East Side? But there's also a large percentage of the I'm worried about anti-Semitism voters there as well, for sure. Harlem is more uptown. This is only 307 votes. Oh, this doesn't, I mean, where do we get the next 60% of voters? Mamdani is only narrowly ahead of Cuomo in Manhattan, but that's mostly a fairly strong Brad Lander performance. By vote share, Cuomo is doing slightly better in Queens and slightly worse in Brooklyn.
To reach those folks.
See what
And what are the key issues that matter to the people in your district?
You know, well, throughout this campaign, we've seen the Cuomo campaign really engage with Black and Latino voters and Asian voters.
Bro, how is she still glazing Cuomo? That's crazy. Oh,
to want to be the next Manhattan borough president. There is no incumbent in the race. State Senator Brad Hoylman-Siegel and City Councilman Keith Powers are fighting to win that job. And now for the money watchdog, New York City Comptroller's job is up for grabs. Lots of contenders here. Current Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine, City Council Finance Chair.
Guys, stop sending me the poly market surge, please. That is the most meaningless fucking thing of all time. You're just desperate for copium. Stop. Staten Island incoming. 46% of scanners reported. Cuomo with 7,000. Mamdani with 5,000 votes. Lander with 1,000 votes. Adams with 695 votes. Most of the E-Day voters from the South Shore, not at all what Cuomo needs. Yeah, it's also a fucking ad. Yeah, literally. It's like a free ad for them. Zoran is cooked in the Bronx. Dave Weigel voice, I've seen enough. That's not Dave Weigel. It's Dave Wasserman, I think, isn't it? Is the one that does the I've seen enough.
Interesting to see who has the other citywide races, whether the incumbent Jumaane Williams stays in the public advocate role. Not a role that has a lot to it except criticizing the government, unless, as we heard from...
Yes, Zoran is not supposed to win any favors until like multiple rounds in. But judging by early vote, because these are the dumps that are coming in right now are supposed to be, as far as I understand, early votes and mail votes. Okay, so depending on Zoran's performance overall in the early votes versus the mail votes, you can make an assessment on how this will play out. Obviously, we don't know with ranked choice voting. We don't fucking know. If nothing else, those surveys from Cuomo line packs that showed him up 12 points look very off base. Where is Kornacki when we need him? I don't want to hear from Kornacki. I saw him talk about Zoran like he was a scary guy, so... Anthony Weiner has fallen to fucking... Wait, what are you sending me? What are you showing me? See the New York Times? All right, getting back to the New York Times. Where is it? All right, more dumps. Okay. Andrew Cuomo making a modest gain over Zoran Mamdani in the new dumps. Not that consequential. Zoran winning precincts in all 5 boroughs with the early vote.
Projects don't get to go through, so obviously you're going to be close with developers, and
we won't know for weeks, yes, but we can make an assessment
all across the city. But clearly, she came out ahead tonight. Not altogether surprising, but there's always. Remember she was here not too long ago when Salamanca decided not to participate in our debate, and I was talking to her, and she's like, no matter who the competitor is, you always run like it's a real race.
Yeah, you don't want to sort of try and change whatever somebody's strategy is, but we always encourage people to come in and debate. Let people hear what your vision is. It can only help you. And we're sad that he didn't take advantage of that. Let's go to Bobby Kuza at the big board. He's got some information for us about the controller's race.
Yeah, we're taking a look at City Comptroller Mark Levine and Justin Brannan, the leading candidates in this one. Mark Levine right now with a pretty convincing lead, up 13 points on Justin Brannan. Not really a huge surprise. I mean, I think if you had to choose a favorite or a front runner in this race, it would have had to have been Mark Levine, the Manhattan Borough President, a relatively high-profile elected official. But Justin Brannan himself got a lot of support in this race, including from the progressive left. I mean, we saw him endorsed by the likes of Bernie Sanders and a number of other left-leaning advocacy groups and elected officials. And it seemed like maybe in the closing days and closing weeks of the race, he had begun to kind of narrow that gap. I mean, the only polling in this race came about a month ago, and I believe it had Mark Levine up by about 20 points. So compared to that, Justin Brannan has sort of narrowed the margin, but right now Mark Levine with a pretty comfortable lead in the early going of this race.
And there was another candidate in that race, right? Do you have numbers for Kevin Parker?
Yes, not to give Kevin Parker short shrift, but he's landed only down at 6%. He's a state senator from Brooklyn. He has run for office many times before, and some of the polling actually had showed him in the teens, but right now down at 6%. So he's in 4th place, actually, in this 4-man race.
Yeah, so the way people think, and I'm sure some of Brannan's supporters are thinking, it's like, well, look, if we've got some second choice votes coming from those 2 other candidates, this could, in fact, be a close race by the time the numbers are all counted.
Right, and this is one of those races where we're not only going to be looking at the margin, we're going to be looking at how close this number is to 50%. Because if this race was over right now, obviously Mark Levine would have, a significant lead, but with less than 50%, he couldn't announce he was the victor. This would have to wait until next Tuesday in ranked choice voting. And in theory, yeah, like you said, if all of Ismail Malave's votes and all of Kevin Parker's votes went to Brannon, which is unlikely, but it is, you know, a mathematically possible possibility, then in that case he could actually surpass Mark Levine. Of course, that's the way ranked choice works.
I was on the wrong tab the whole time, my bad.
In practice, it doesn't always mean you can make
Calm
up
down,
that
everybody.
much ground. We saw it almost happen in the mayor's race 4 years ago with Eric Adams, but that may have
this
been
half of Brooklyn early vote by early vote and mail.
This kind of lead, it's very
Mamdani is 60%, bro. He fucking cooked on Brooklyn.
Got it. And while you're there, Bobby, could we look at some of the numbers for the borough?
He really locked down the podcast constituency, dude. It's crazy.
Sort of the top line number about who won, but I'm very curious as to what the percentages look like.
Yeah, I mean, let's take a look at Vanessa Gibson. So I got to say, this race I thought was going to be a lot closer because Rafael Salamanca, you know, relatively well-known city councilman from the South Bronx. He's being term limited out of office. So, you know, gunning for Vanessa Gibson, who is a relatively popular borough president. She's been a lawmaker in the Bronx for a long time. It's not that often that you see a sitting elected official like this, who's pretty well liked, actually being primaried by another prominent elected official. But Rafael Salamanca got a lot of money in this race. He had some endorsements, but in the end, Vanessa Gibson seems to be running away with this thing, not particularly close. And then in the other one, we were looking
in exactly moments like this. What are we supposed to do? Not some burbs. People who are still in the hood, not some burbs. Do you think Bernie Sanders' policies would actually be harmful to black people? Do you think that he had bad policies for black people? Do you think it's even remotely possible to actively campaign to black people when the Democratic Party machine is so fucking strong in these neighborhoods, within the church groups, and that they get to literally choose who is the candidate? Don't reveal to this voter that he just does what he's told by the machine of party politics. He might wake up to the fact that he's lived as an actual NPC his entire life. Exactly. That's what's so fucking annoying. You've been in here for 76 months. How the fuck have you not figured out? This is what I'm talking about. People behave like fucking bots. That's not a hate watcher. That's probably a Gen X black voter, okay? Who obviously, clearly, for 76 months of being in here, understands that, I mean, has more radical politics. But still, there's always the same, like, there's always this attitude where people just like regurgitate whatever they heard on television. It is so incredibly strong. It is impossible to penetrate. That's it. Wait, what the fuck? That dude is trolling. He's not even black. There ain't no fucking way. Ain't no. I'm gonna lose my mind, I swear to God. I think he was just memeing. He was just making, he was just fucking memeing. It's fine. Two minutes until polls close. That's such a fucking lie, man. I live in the Southeast LA. The first time I met a canvasser was a Bernie Sanders came. Yeah, Bernie dropped the ball with a black vote. Yeah, because the older black vote, which is just the same as like most machine politics, but specifically, like this is the Democratic Party's hardest to fucking broach, most comfortable demographic, black women specifically, older black women. Like older black women vote for the Democrats by like Assad margins, okay? Older black women vote for the Democrats, black women specifically, vote for the Democrats by like Vladimir Putin margins. It is unheard of in democracy, okay? In like in an actual functioning democratic process, this does not happen under any other circumstance, okay? Assad margins is crazy. No, literally, dude, it's 90%. What are we talking about? It's 90+%. That's not a real, like, that is the only, that's unheard of. Like, there is no comparison in modern liberal democracy for any group that is as loyal to a party and a movement. It's not a thing. Like, it does not exist. It does not exist. They are the Fedayeen for the Dems. And it's a really, really robust and really important political machine. But it is directly a faucet for whatever the institutional Democrats are.